Namaskar, ladies and gentlemen. Extremely warm welcome to all of you. It's indeed an honor and pleasure to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Piyush Goyal, Honorable Minister of State Independent Charge for Power, Coal and New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, who has joined us on this momentous occasion. Please join me in extending a very warm welcome to him. May I also take this opportunity to extend a very warm welcome to our other esteemed dignitaries present on the dais. Without any further ado, may I please request Mr. Harish Lakshman, President ACMA, to kindly make his welcome address for this special plenary session.
Honorable Mr. Piyush Goyal, Minister of State for Power, Coal, New and Renewable Energy. Mr. Vikram Kirloskar, I think he'll be joining us shortly on the dais. President SIAM. Mr. Ramesh Suri, Vice President ACMA. Vinny Mehta, Director General ACMA, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to welcome Mr. Piyush Goyal, Minister of State for Power, Coal, New and Renewable Energy. We are indeed very grateful, sir, for so readily accepting our invitation, and that too literally in the last minute, in the place of Mr. Arun Jaitley. As you all know, Mr. Jaitley was recently hospitalized, but he's doing well, and I wish him on behalf of ACMA a speedy recovery. Sir, I must candidly admit that the formation of a new government has ushered in a new ray of hope. In a short period of just over 100 days, the government has been able to bring about a sea change in the perception of India, as well as given a significant boost to the investor confidence in India. Further, the call made by our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi ji, on the Independence Day to manufacture in India for exports, and government's focus on promoting the Made in India brand has tremendously excited us and touched a chord in our hearts. If there is one manufacturing sector that India can be genuinely proud of, it is the automotive sector. The automotive industry in the country today is around $100 billion, of which the component sector is about 1/3. The overall investment in the industry has crossed $35 billion, and it provides employment to over 29 million people, both direct and indirect. It is clearly an engine of growth, not only for our nation, but also for the entire region. I am confident that with the industry-friendly approach of the current government, the automotive industry will soon be synonymous with the Indian economy. We are also glad that the government is determined to implement the much-awaited GST sooner rather than later, and there seems to be a convergence of views amongst all states for it. This will indeed be a remarkable achievement and will unleash the true potential of a One India market. Sir, today the industry suffers significantly from power outages, at times for long hours. To ensure continuity in defect-free production and meet our commitments to our customers, each one of us have had to invest in our own power generation plants. The power thus generated is twice as expensive than what we draw from the state grids, further impacting our already thin margins. Your vision of making India a backup generator-free country has been received with great enthusiasm in our country, and we wish to see it as a reality very soon. Considering globalization is an imperative for the auto component industry, which is also our theme for today's session and the entire ensuing year, we have, together with McKinsey & Company, deep dived and crystal gazed of what could be the likely future of our industry, a future that we have to create for ourselves. We have set ourselves the following targets. One is to increase exports from the current $10 billion to about $35 to $40 billion by 2020. Second is to increase revenues from overseas assets from the current $6 billion to about $20 billion. Third is to increase the count of Indian suppliers in the global top 100 from the current figure of 1 to about 5 by 2020. And then increase the overall industry turnover from the existing $35 billion to about $100 to $115 billion by 2020. While these figures may seem ambitious to some, we believe if the right conditions are created to unleash the true potential of our industry, these are definitely achievable. We are definitely hungry for more, sir, and we look forward to you and your government to provide us with an environment conducive for growth and development of the automotive industry. Once again, a very hearty welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lakshman, for your opening remarks and for also for your valuable suggestions. May I please invite Mr. Vikram Kirloskar, President SIAM and Vice Chairman of the Toyota Kirloskar Motor Private Limited, to kindly share his thoughts with us.
Mr. Piyush Goyal, Honorable Minister of State for Power, Coal and New and Renewable Energy, Government of India, Harish, Ramesh ji, Vinny, friends. Sir, I'd just like to briefly talk about the auto industry situation over the last 2 years, just to update you the current condition. As per the Automotive Mission Plan we have, which was formed about 8 years ago, we are supposed to have been doing about $160 billion in cars by 2016. We'll be about 30 to 40 billion short. In this process of this automotive mission plan, the industry has invested close to 70,000 crores in the last 5 years in creating capacity, and with the last 2 years reduction in sales, we have an excess capacity of close to 30-40% in many of our industries. So the industry has been going through a very tough time, and it's only in the last 4 months that we have started seeing some growth across most of the sectors, albeit the commercial vehicles has been still a little slow. So what has the industry been doing to get through this kind of situation? In most cases, it's been a lot of innovation, especially in the component sector, and one of the key areas of innovation has been in reduction of costs, in reduction of power consumption. There's enough problems, as Harish said, about having captive generating sets, but I think the industry has worked very hard in how to reduce power consumption in production. I know in our own company, in assembly, we monitor power consumption on a daily basis, and I'm very proud to say we are one of the lowest power consuming plants in all the various Toyota factories around the world on a per unit basis, per car basis. So this is one of the great works which the industry has been doing, along with frugal manufacturing to conserve all kinds of resources. The second project the industry has worked on over the last several years has been on the electric and hybrid vehicle mobility plan to reduce use of liquid fuels. This paper was accepted by the then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh about 1.5 years ago, and we are still waiting for the final notification to come through with all the various incentives that have been allocated to it. This will certainly help a lot with reduction of liquid fuels in the future. One of the ideas in this hybrid electric vehicle plan is also to set up an infrastructure for charging electric vehicles, starting with the larger cities where pollution issues are there, and then continuing to other areas. These are just 2 points I thought I will bring to your notice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kirloskar, for sharing your thoughts with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we're extremely pleased to have with us the presence of Honorable Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal. Mr. Goyal is currently a member of the Rajya Sabha and Minister of State with independent charge for power, coal and new and renewable energy. Earlier, he headed the BJP's Information Communication Campaign Committee and oversaw the publicity and advertising campaign of the party, including the social media outreach for the Indian General Elections 2014. During his 28-year-long political career, he has held several important positions at different levels in the BJP. He had the privilege of being mentored by stalwarts such as Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, former Prime Minister of India. He was also nominated by the Government of India to the prestigious Task Force for Interlinking Rivers in 2002. He's had a brilliant academic record, All India second rank holder, Chartered Accountant, and second rank holder in Law in Mumbai University. He was also a very well-known investment banker where he has advised top corporates and on management, strategy and growth. Ladies and gentlemen, with these words, may I now invite Honorable Minister to kindly address us.
A great pleasure to be with you here, Harish. Thank you for this opportunity. Vikram ji, Ramesh ji, Vinny. Very distinguished gathering here, but they've put the light on so strong that I can't even recognize. So many friends are there in the audience. Thank you. But extremely glad to be amongst all of you today. Frankly, when Ramesh ji talked about it, I didn't realize it's going to be such a big affair. I thought I'll meet some few people and get a little more interaction, learn something from you, maybe take back a few messages, a few suggestions. But delighted to be among such an illustrious gathering. I see a lot of distinguished friends in the front benches. I've only come recently to the front benches. I was more a backbencher always. And it's great fun to be at the back because then you can enjoy, you can bitch about the speaker, you can say how boring he is. You can also have a laugh or two without having to be prim and proper like the front benchers have to be. But it's a great opportunity for India that we are all participating in, and I think I personally believe it's time that all of us recognize and hold our head proud that our time has come. I think this is the day I think we have all been waiting for, where India can hold its head high in the Committee of Nations and feel proud about our achievements, feel proud about our future, and confident about our ability to deliver. Particularly your sector is one sector which has, I think, made India proud, made India reach out far and wide all across the world. And in a small measure, I have been part of this sector, so I recognize the immense problems that each one of you must be going through in your own lives, in your own businesses, struggling through the maze of government, bureaucracy, challenges of capital, challenges of interest rates, challenges of inadequate infrastructure, trade facilitation. I certainly recognize that in this room really is a set of people with that grit and determination who can fight the system, who can overcome these challenges and reach out to the world with, as he rightly pointed out, billions of dollars of exports, investment of nearly 200,000 lakh crore of rupees in India. And if you ask me, the targets that you have set is something that is aligned with the kind of thinking this government has. It's really pleasurable to hear that you're looking at quadrupling exports, looking at investments, touching the $3-digit billion-dollar mark. My only hesitation is the timelines. Do we really need that long? I think you can do it. I know this room has the ability, this room has the technological superiority to be actually able to do all of those targets much faster. And towards that end, I can assure you that this government led by our visionary Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi is completely and wholly committed to the Make in India program. It's a personal commitment of the Honorable Prime Minister. All of us are aligned to that dream that we in India can produce, we can produce high quality, we can innovate, we can have affordable production. And I'm quite confident that the way things are progressing, that the plans that the government has going forward will enable India to be that superpower in manufacturing, that superpower providing to the whole world. And I think all of you have your future, your destinies written, in my opinion, in golden words. And I promise you, 5 years from today, 4.5 years to be precise, because I hope you call me before the next election. But I'm quite confident that you will tell me 4.5 years from today that you have beaten each one of those targets that you mentioned just now. You know, Anand Mahindra very recently said somewhere, I don't recollect where it was, that manufacturing is the elixir for many of our social and economic woes. And I couldn't agree with him more. Truly, manufacturing is that one area that I think deserves probably the highest attention of any government, not only because you add value to the economy, you give jobs both directly and indirectly. You mentioned a significant number of 29 million. To not only fulfill the current manufacturing potential, but planning for a 5-year significant ramp up, maybe 5 times or 7 times what they are presently manufacturing in 5 years. And my only request to the whole room there was that in 2 or 3 years, I want the importers to come and ask me for protection from you. And I think that's the ability that Indian manufacturers have. I believe we can scale up. I believe we can use better technology. We can leverage on very, very competitive labor rates, particularly with Chinese inflation on manufacturing cost and their labor cost. I'm absolutely convinced that given the reasonable support, it's not as if I have to go out of the way. It's just that we have to create an enabling environment, a little bit of correctives on the fiscal policies which are hurting the industry, maybe some more effort to bring back the golden era of Mr. Vajpayee when interest rates were probably half of what they are today. And I see no reason why domestic manufacturing and imports cannot coexist. Domestic manufacturers cannot be given more than enough space which will provide them to flourish in the Indian ecosystem and ensure that the economic growth is not dampened. And I'm extremely happy that it took all of 1 week from my first meeting till the day they suo moto withdrew their application for anti-dumping duty. And I don't know how many of you have come across such instances, but that is the strength of the visionary leadership of Shri Narendra Modi, where he believes in an inclusive dialogue, and he believes that India has the ability to sit down across the table, resolve contentious issues, bring everybody and their interests on the table. And I'm delighted that the manufacturers in their wisdom withdrew the anti-dumping application. I have made certain assurances which are already on the way, most of them getting activated at different levels. And we will have a situation where I'm confident that Indian manufacturers of solar will be probably more competitive than imports in the next 2 or 3 years. They'll probably be at least 5 times the size what they're doing now. And I see a glorious future for the Indian solar manufacturers. And that's the kind of governance and government that we would like to provide to the nation. I think there are certain challenges. I have myself been an entrepreneur. I started after my studies, in fact, along with my studies also, to seed a auto manufacturing company. It was a steel forging company, not exactly in the auto parts space, but a feeder industry. And I truly understand what all of you have gone through. And I remember it was a small scale industry. Vikram was just reading a small note I made there. I must have made at least 100 trips to the MIDC in Mumbai, the Andheri office. I could probably even now identify what is there in every room and every floor of that building. The amount of time I've personally spent there. The amount of problems I faced when I wanted the power connection for that plant. In fact, my mother used to be an MLA, and I managed it the way most of you manage it. I didn't ask her. And she was horridly mad. She said, "What is this? How can we do it? How can you do it? You could have talked to me." I said, "मेरे को project और delay हो जाता, उसका खर्चा ज़्यादा पड़ता." But these are things which can be changed. I don't think there is a reason for this to continue. There's a lot of the flab that has probably developed over the years that can be reduced. And you'll be happy to know that one of the first things that we have embarked on, even in my own Ministry of Power, is what can we do to ease the business environment. For example, very often we come across situations which probably relate to one company, but I can see that it must be an impact which others also feel. So one of the first decisions I took was that we will hear everybody, but we'll not act on individual complaints. We'll go to the root cause and figure out what needs to be done so that everybody can benefit equally. And I think that has paid huge dividends as far as my own experience of 105 days today go. We could actually, for example, detect in one of my first interactions in Gandhinagar how rail linkages and coal linkages are completely misaligned in India. So I found coal coming into the ports in Kandla being taken by train all the way up to Korba for a plant there which was dependent on imported coal, and another plant in Gujarat which had a linkage from Korba, shifting coal all the way back to Gujarat. And it was such a sorry state of affairs. Of course, we now have KPMG working out a whole coal rationalization of linkages across the country. I think tomorrow or day after they're giving me their first cut presentations. But the fact is the potential, just that one example showed us an enormous potential at a national level of what can be done to unclog the rail infrastructure, which is a bottleneck for more coal in the system. And like this, everyone, the transmission companies came and told me the forest clearances required by the private sector are different from the ones required by the public sector. I, for one, could not figure out what's the difference. I picked up the phone, called up Shri Prakash Javadekar, the Honorable Environment Minister, and on the phone he said, absolutely right, we'll sort it out. And he sorted it out, it's already out in the market. Now private transmission companies and public have exactly the same laws. I see simple things like this can actually go a long way to resolve the kind of bottlenecks and delays. And one fundamental principle I've been telling all the officials in my departments is that the ecosystem remains the same. After all, if we have delayed power projects for 3 years or 2 years or whatever, for lack of fuel, for lack of some approvals, environment, whatever may be the causes, the ecosystem will have to pay for it. Somewhere along the line, that plant will come up. All the costs that it has lost in 3 years will be IDC or loaded to the capital, and in the regulatory mechanism will be passed through to the consumers. So maybe not today, but 3 years down the road, the impact of this inefficiency will be paid by all of you sitting in this room. It's not going to come from thin air. The other alternative, let them go sick. Who pays for that? The banking sector. Who's invested in the banking sector? Largely all of you. So end of the day, in this ecosystem, wherever the inefficiency lies, whether in government, whether in your own fields, by the entrepreneurs, by the public sector, I see that burden finally going to the last man on the street. And I think that is the anomaly that we need to correct. That is what all of us in government are focused on. And towards that end, we have certain cardinal principles of running the government, which is helping us achieve that goal. I did mention about doing the root cause analysis of whatever comes to our attention. But another equally important paradigm shift that we are focusing on is transparency. You might have seen, at least in my case, I've been in the public domain quite frequently, sharing what the pain points of industry are, sharing what is the evils or what ails this industry, the power sector, and what plans we have. And the idea is that we need more open government. We also need to bring transparency in the processes. So yesterday, day before yesterday, I had the State Power Ministers Conference. All the 30 states, including Delhi, were in that conference, and the 5 union territories. And I have directed all the 3 ministries under me that within a defined time frame, it could be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, we will completely eliminate envelope-based tendering in the entire ministries. It will all be through electronic auction or reverse auction or electronic tendering. And I appeal to all the 30 states that if they could do the same thing correspondingly, in my opinion, the ability to compete and the ability to discover the right price for every product will become much more. I come from a state where tendering, particularly the envelope-based tendering, has been mastered almost into a science of corruption. It's not a political atmosphere, so I hope I'm not misunderstood. It may be happening in the other states also. But I'm not referring to a state, please. These are problems that are systemic in our country. But please see, you know what you do. You have a friend of mine came and told me about 2 years ago, there was a toll road to be bid. Now the tender is out, but the tender document will not be given to anybody unless the minister's private secretary confirms to the officer that yes, he's an authorized person, and you give him the tender. That was shocking enough, but then okay, so you first come to the minister, get his private secretary to order the official to give the tender. Then when you want to fill in the tender and submit it, you are advised that you can fill in the technical bid and submit it, but the financial bid, you give us your plain paper to the minister. And then he calls everybody in the room, has a dialogue that, okay, I have 4 projects, each one bid. And now the bidding, mind you, is not the cost of the project. You know what I mean, the bidding was. And then either you have 2 options. This is an actual case which was brought to my notice. You have 2 options. One is we can share the different projects amongst all the friends in the room. And if there's a differential in size, it can be adjusted by a mutual settlement across the... Alternately, if the projects are less, then the person who bids and gets it or who's been approved as the final winner will compensate the other people. Now, it's not something unique. It's happening. It's been happening for years. We've got to change that. Somewhere along the line in between, we have a new guideline that you cannot negotiate with the lowest tenderer. In a paper-based bidding, you cannot negotiate with the lowest tenderer. Now, possibly that came out of some understanding in government that this was being used again by the political establishment or by bureaucrats or whatever to favor a few or to enable a few to match or give a lower bid and corner the business. Maybe the objective was right, but in the process, what has happened? We've lost the ability to negotiate harder to get better deals. So I believe sincerely that if the whole of government was to move to transparency and electronic procurement and disposal of maybe natural resources, like we've just seen such a big problem before the country, at least 2 large scandals in the last few years. I think if all of this was through the computer, through e-auction or reverse auction, and people had the ability to compete, you saw that in 3G. In 3G, I think we got a phenomenal amount of response and a phenomenal amount of funds coming to the government of India. Similarly, if the entire government machinery, and I am pledging myself in my 3 ministries to be doing that, to ensure that every one of the procurement, I mean, I'm told that 4, 5 lakh, 10 lakh rupees could be a cut-off limit for the very petty purchases like water bottles and stuff like that. But prima facie on the larger canvas, I see huge potential savings. And in that respect, I see Indian manufacturers getting a chance to really flourish in an environment where there's more honesty, there's more transparency in operations. And I hope all of you come up with new ideas. I know that I don't have a monopoly or a complete trademark on new ideas. It's innovation. What you do in your businesses can help us innovate in government also. So please do tell us what we can do to improve the last mile infrastructure. What can we do to improve the plug and play in terms of you're getting the ability to have water, electricity, gas, telecommunications, road connectivity. What is it that can help you and the manufacturing enclaves, which by and large now are quite well defined and developed all over the country, to do better business? I know in my area of operation in MIDC, TTC area, that's Navi Mumbai, we had a common effluent treatment plant. Now that plant was set up some 25 years ago or 20 years ago by our industry association. No, more than 25 years ago. It's a hugely profitable business. And the industry association actually runs out of that common effluent treatment plant. I don't know if there's anybody here from TTC. And we all pay for it. We all share the cost. So many people did not have to be burdened, like you mentioned, with DG sets. It's the same story. And I think the whole area is flourishing. It's a polluting area, a lot of chemical industry there, but still we've been able to ameliorate the potential environmental hazards quite a bit with a common industry initiative. So I think ease of doing business, cutting the flap, cutting the bureaucracy, cutting down the paperwork. At least in the power sector, we have a committee with the private sector and the government officials working together to assess what are the reports that are generated, what are the applications. Can we have, like the American universities, a common application form with all the base data common and maybe just some additional data which each department requires, being an addendum or a supplementary sheet which goes to that particular department? Can we possibly look at ways and means to improve innovation and R&D funds in this country? I can tell you one thing, Mr. Modi in one interaction with 4, 5 of the infrastructure ministries flagged up this issue. Let's focus on R&D and science and technology in a major way this time. I think Indians have the ability, Indians have the technology, Indians have the intellect to be able to lead in the world rather than follow. And I personally believe R&D is an area which should have unlimited resources. Dr. Anil Kakotkar, the former Atomic Energy Chief of India, had come on Monday and he presented to me, along with 5 directors of IITs, a brilliant new concept. I don't know whether it will succeed or fail, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to run pilots maybe in 5,000 homes, maybe in 100,000 homes. And at these sidelines, after the discussion on that particular project got over, he mentioned about solar thermal being another great potential for India and suggested that we run a 200 crore rupee pilot on that. And he said for the last 2 years he's been struggling with that concept, not able to have any headway. I called up the NTPC chairman at lunch. I said, Dr. Kakotkar has a 5 o'clock flight to Mumbai, and that was Ganesh immersion day, Monday. And he had Ganesh at his home, so he had to go back to Bombay for the immersion. And I sent him to NTPC. In 20 minutes, we approved the 200 crore rupee R&D project to be done jointly with IIT Jodhpur. Because I think that if we can make it successful, solar thermal can change the way India operates, particularly for remote areas, the border areas, the villages, far-flung villages. Huge potential if we can get nighttime power also out of these solar thermal units. So I think if the way you all are all working in your respective fields, we in government are also conscious that R&D and innovation will have to be a mantra that we'll all have to work on. We'll have to get out of discretionary powers that have been enjoyed for several years, bring in more transparency, bring in more honesty into the system. I know you would all love to hear some good news on the cost of credit, but that's beyond my domain and the government's direct domain. We can on our end assure you that we are doing everything possible to improve the macroeconomic indicators. We are focusing on job generation and employment and working opportunities, which largely rest on our focus on tourism, infrastructure, manufacturing, and housing. I think these 4 basic sectors, manufacturing, infrastructure, tourism, and housing, will lead the way forward in the years to come, taking India into the next level, where we can look at every person standing on his own feet, self-reliant, not dependent on government doles, a skilled workforce across the country, people who have opportunities to serve the nation in different ways, rather than depend on the largesse of subsequent governments. And I'm fairly confident that given the kind of enthusiasm the manufacturing sector has displayed over the years, and particularly the auto manufacturers who have provided, I think, equipment for the best in class all across the world, I would love to see your sector actually reach out. I know you've gone to Latin America in a big way in recent years. There was that huge impetus that was given to Latin American exports. Africa opens up a lot of opportunities, and with the renewed thrust on the Look East policy, I'm confident that your sector not only will provide to India what the high quality products that can help India become technologically even better, but will provide to the world the Indian prowess of manufacturing, technology, and innovation. My best wishes to your conference and the rest of the proceedings. I hope we get another chance to meet again, where I can give a little bit of my scorecard and hear from you how you have fared under the new government with all the policy initiatives and changes that we are trying to put in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, for extremely inspiring and positive address. Your presence at the 54th ACMA annual session is testimony to the fact that you and your government are committed towards working and boosting the growth of the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite Mr. Ramesh Suri, Vice President ACMA, and I request him to kindly propose a vote of thanks.
Honorable Shri Piyush Goyal ji, Mr. Vikram Kirloskar, Mr. Harish Lakshman, Mr. Vinay Mehta, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Piyush ji, thank you so much for sparing time to be with us. I know it was a very tight schedule for you, but somehow you could manage and being with us this afternoon. We are indeed very touched by your gracious gesture and your commitment to the industry. Your challenge for preponing the realization of targets is well perceived by each one of us. Sir, your government has brought in a ray of new hope to our stagnant industry and disperse the prevailing gloom. We together will beat all the milestones set for us. Our President, Mr. Harish Lakshman, did mention about the state of the industry in his opening remarks. What has touched a chord in our hearts is the recent call by our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji from Red Fort on the Independence Day, inviting investments for Make in India and exporting to the world. Sir, we are very confident that we will be in a position to achieve this and move forward as far as the Made in India and export to the world. We are proud that the automotive industry is one of such industry to be focused upon. This mantra of our Honorable Prime Minister resonates well with our vision, and as you see, our theme for today and for the whole of the next year will be globalization. But this is clearer said than done. To be competitive would need several enabling factors to be accorded to the industry, the most critical among them being power. Now, we are lucky that you are there, and we are looking forward that all support what the industry, you have very rightly said, the hurdles and the other things what are coming into the growth of all the and the operation of the industry is concerned. Countries such as Thailand, Vietnam, China, which are among our key competitors, have rates of power in the range of 3.5 to rupees 6, while our country, with the backup of generators, the average rate is anywhere between 12 to 14. This needs your urgent intervention. No, sir, we are just mentioning about as far as the rate of the per unit of the power is concerned. So,
May I just interject? See, my apologies. That was a thing I wanted to discuss. I left it out. My apologies.
No, sir.
It's like this. It's a conundrum where, in an earlier interaction in the morning at the Economist I mentioned, we are very concerned about the subsidy regime when it comes to giving subsidies to the poor. But if at all there is a subsidy or a benefit that we require, we are very quick to ask for it. It happened in the course of a question raised by one person. Same person raised the question that, when will you set the pricing right so that everybody pays for power? And that same person asked the second question, that you should increase the generation-based incentives to the power sector, the solar sector or the wind sector. Now, I think one must recognize that till India gets out of the scourge of poverty, till we have poor people whom we have to fend for, let's not be so insensitive if some little benefit is given to the poor, the small consumer, or the farmer, who's as it is in a pretty bad shape with small land holdings and very poor technology. Having said that, I appreciate that manufacturing cannot succeed with such heavy pricing. So we are putting in place some sort of mechanism by which we can restrict the subsidized power through separate distribution feeder lines and manage the entire power sector better. In the budget, we've announced the Deen Dayal Upadhyay feeders, Gram Jyoti Yojana, which will segregate and ensure farmers get adequate quantity of power, which can be targeted to the farmers and bring down the overall cost of energy to industry also. I'm quite confident that looking at the Gujarat experiment, where in the last 12 years, while every home and every industry now gets full power, the cost of power, the price at which power is supplied, has increased the minimum in 12 years compared to the rest of India. We'll do the same for India. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Sir, the second point is I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the various FTAs that have signed and have resulted in inverted tariff structure for the industry. The rate of import duty on finished components is progressively diminishing, while that on input raw materials continues to remain high. I am happy that in the recent budget, this issue has been addressed for the chemical industry, and I hope that we will also be beneficiary sooner than later. So we need your support in this area. 100%. Thank you. Give me a note and we'll thank you. Mr. Vikram Kirloskar, President SIAM, thank you once again for joining us for this session. The component and the vehicle industry have a shared destiny, and I look forward to your continued support. Thank you, friend.
Thank you, Mr. Suri. Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude, may I request Mr. Harish, Lakshman and Mr. Suri to present a memento to Honorable Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, but I don't accept mementos, so I'll leave it. I just respect it.